Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Hicks. I'm the founder and principal consultant here at Richard M. Hicks Consulting. We provide consulting services for secure remote access and enterprise PKI projects for organizations worldwide. In this video, I'll demonstrate integrating Entra conditional access with Microsoft Always On VPN. Integrating Entra conditional access with Always On VPN improves security by allowing administrators to ensure device compliance and apply platform restrictions for endpoints accessing the network remotely. Entra conditional access provides location and risk-based access control with context-aware multi-factor authentication. In addition, Entra conditional access allows administrators to enforce strong phishing-resistant credentials for sign-on through policy-based authentication strength requirements. There are a few basic requirements for integrating Entra conditional access with Always On VPN. First, your users must be an Entra ID, either natively or synchronized from on-premises AD. At a minimum, you must have Entra ID P1, and P2 is required for advanced conditional access settings like risk-based sign-in. Also, your target endpoints must be under Intune management. Your devices can either be native Entra ID joined or hybrid Entra ID joined. A few configuration tasks are required to enable Entra conditional access integration with Always On VPN. First, we must enable Entra conditional access for VPN access by creating an Entra VPN root certificate. Once that's done, we'll publish the Entra VPN root certificate to on-premises Active Directory. NPS policy and NPS server configuration changes are also required to support Entra conditional access. After that, we'll create a conditional access policy and target the VPN enterprise application. We'll create a simple policy to enforce device compliance and then enable the policy to take effect immediately. Finally, we'll update the Always On VPN client configuration settings. How you do this depends upon how you deploy and manage those settings today. I'll demonstrate how to update the native Intune VPN device configuration policy, how to update the XML configuration file if you're using Intune with the custom policy option, and how to update Always On VPN Dynamic Profile Configurator or DPC. So let's get started by creating our Entra Conditional Access VPN root certificate. We'll open the Microsoft Entra Admin Center, and we'll go down here to Protection, Conditional Access, and then here in this navigation pane, we'll select VPN connectivity. We'll click New Certificate, and then you're going to select a duration. Now, the duration you choose is entirely up to you. If you would like to do this more frequently, you can select 1 year. If you'd like to do it less frequently, you can select 2 or 3 years. I'm going to choose 1 year, and we'll choose Create. And once the certificate is created, I can go ahead and download it. You can download either the binary certificate or the base 64 certificate. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to click on Download Certificate. Choose Keep. And then, of course, we have the certificate file downloaded here. So I'm going to copy this over to my admin workstation, and we're going to publish this certificate to Active Directory. So I've copied over the Entra VPN root certificate over to my admin workstation. This is a workstation that's joined to the domain, of course. I'm going to open an elevated PowerShell command window, and then I'm just going to run a couple of quick commands here. First, I'm going to navigate to the desktop because that's where that file is. And now I'm going to run the command certutil-ds publish-f and then the name of the certificate file and then root CA to put it in the root CA certificate store. I'm going to repeat this command by just hitting the up arrow, but we're going to change the certificate store to ntauthca. And it's critical. The last one's critical because that's what enables this certificate to be used for authentication against Active Directory. Once the VPN root certificate is published to Active Directory, we can create our conditional access policy. I'm going to select Policies, and then I'm going to create New Policy, and I'm going to create a very basic policy just so you get a feel for how to do this. So we'll call this Always On VPN. I'm going to select a target resource here. I'm going to choose Select Resources, and I'm going to select a specific resource namely the VPN server resource. So we'll select that. And now you see that we have a targeted application here, the VPN server application. The next thing I'm going to do is go set some access controls in this. So I'm going to click Grant, and I'm going to choose Grant Access, but require the device to be marked compliant. Again, this is a highly simplistic conditional access policy. You can do much more advanced stuff with this later, but as a baseline, this is a good place to start. So I'm going to select Require Device to be marked compliant, choose Select. I am going to select on for the policy. I want to use this policy right away. And since it's targeted at an individual application, I don't risk breaking everybody in the enterprise with this. So if something goes sideways, I just won't be able to get to the VPN, and I can come and fix that later. So I'm done here. I'm going to choose Create. And we're good to go. Our Always On VPN conditional access policy is now in place. Next, we need to make some changes to the network policy server to support integration with Entra conditional access for Always On VPN. The first thing I'm going to do is going to go to my network policy, and I'm going to edit this policy. I want to go to the settings, and then here I'm going to select vendor specific under radius attributes, click Add, and then select allowed certificate OID, click Add, and then add once more, and we're going to add the value 136.141.311.87. So this is the application policy that signifies the Entra conditional access short-lived certificate. So I'm going to click OK. Click OK once more, and then close, and then click OK. Next, we're going to open the registry editor. We're going to navigate to HKey local machine, system current control set services, RASMAN, PPP, EAP 13. And we need to create a registry entry, a DWORD entry called ignore no revocation check. And we need to set that to a value of 1. Once that's done, click OK. You can close out the registry editor, and we need to reboot the NPS server for this change to take effect. Once the changes have been completed on the NPS server, we can open up Intune Admin Center and make the changes to the Always On VPN client configuration settings. So here I'm going to navigate to Devices, Configuration. I'm going to find my Always On VPN profile. So here I'm going to click on that. We'll scroll down here and choose Edit next to the configuration settings. We'll expand conditional access, and we will enable the policy. Now, it's recommended that you use single sign-on with a certificate because it just makes things work a little easier. So I'm going to select yes, and it's going to ask you for a bit of information here. The name that it's asking you for is the name of the object identifier, which is going to be placed here. So this is an object identifier, or EKU, and specifically we want the client authentication application policy. So I'll paste that here, and the name of that, of course, is client authentication. Finally, the issuer hash needs to be added to this policy, and this is essentially the thumbprint of the root CA's certificate. Now, technically speaking, you could use the CA's certificate for the issuing CA server. I recommend using the root CA server. That way this works with certificates issued by any issuing or subordinate CA. So once that's done, you can click Review and Save, and then save the policy. If you're deploying Always On VPN client configuration settings using PowerShell or using Intune with the custom XML option, then you need to make some changes to your XML configuration file. Specifically, we need to add the device compliance section as shown here. You'll see that we've set the compliance policy to true. We've defined our EKU for the SSO certificate as well as the issuer hash. If you'd like to cut and paste, you can download this XML sample file from my GitHub at github.com/richardhiggs/AOVPN. In addition, you also need to update the TLS extensions section of the XML configuration file. So here I have defined my conditional access EKU. This is the custom EKU we talked about earlier, and here is the name of that conditional access policy. This is used for certificate filtering on the endpoint, And this is helpful to ensure that the correct certificate is selected if there's more than one certificate in the store that has client authentication assigned to it. If you are using Always On VPN Dynamic Profile Configurator, or DPC, it's really easy to configure device compliance here. Just open up your DPC GPO and navigate to the User Tunnel Advanced Settings, select Enabled, and then provide the certificate EKU and certificate issuer hash. Click OK. And now when group policy updates on the endpoint, it will pick up these new settings and you'll be good to go. So now that we've updated our Always On VPN client configuration settings and the device has had a chance to sync, let's take a look and see what it looks like there. So the first thing you'll notice down here in the notification area is that it looks like I've got an active VPN connection. That's really good. So let's open up the network control panel and you'll see that my Always On VPN client configuration settings have been applied and that I'm actually connected. So I'm going to look at the properties of this connection. So we'll right click and choose properties. I want to demonstrate here the security filtering aspects. So we'll go to security, properties, we'll click configure, we'll click advanced, and now you'll see here is where I have selected my Azure Conditional Access application policy for certificate selection. So this ensures that the Entra Conditional Access certificate is used for authentication. If I take a look at the certificate store here, if I expand, this is the current user store. If I expand personal certificates, you'll see I have two certificates. One of them is issued by my on-premises issuing CA, and the other one is issued by the Microsoft VPN root CA. This is the Entra Conditional Access CA. And you'll notice that this expiration date is today. I'm recording this on February 8th. It expires on February 8th. And in fact, if I go to the Details tab, you'll see the valid from and the valid to are a little more than an hour or so, 9:55 to 11. So, by the way, this means that it was issued at 5 minutes after this, because when you issue a new certificate, all certificates are issued with a valid from date about 5 minutes before they were actually issued, just to account for clock skew. This certificate was actually issued probably around 10 a.m. and it expires just a little after 11 a.m. So it's just a 1 hour certificate. So clearly I've met the conditions of the conditional access policy and I was granted access by virtue of the fact that I have this certificate now in my certificate store. And if I'm accessing on-premises resources, the certificate that's issued by on-premises CA is the one that's used for authentication. So there you have it. We've integrated Entra Conditional Access with Always On VPN, and we can take advantage of the power and capability of conditional access to improve the security posture for our remote access deployment. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me by leaving a comment below, or you can find me on the various social media channels by visiting richardhicks.com/connect.